Fantastic. Well, we've called this our Synth Mountain, and we thought we'd go a bit crazy really with our synthesizer wall this year. But really, this is kind of a nice way to be able to showcase essentially what the SL MkIII is capable of doing. The SL MkIII, of course, was released last year. It's a flagship keyboard controller. Here we've got the 61-note version, but we have the 49-note version as well. It's a controller. It can control your DAW software, of course. It's got very nice deep integration into Ableton, Logic, and all the major DAWs. We've got HUI control as well. But on top of that, there are 8 internal sequencers inside here, and a really very kind of clever way, I believe, to be able to control hardware. Of course, in today's climate, a lot of people are very interested in controlling hardware, working with hardware, and playing with hardware instruments. And the SL really, kind of speaks to those people. So essentially what we've got is kind of 8 of the circuit sequencers inside of here. And we've got some nice screens on the top panel here as well. And you'll see I've got some LEDs in front of the device, and as I switch through, the colors are changing. And basically what I'm doing now is I'm addressing different instruments in our Synth Mountain. And kind of, I guess the idea that we wanted to show was all of the things here can be just controlled completely from one central point. So for example, here, I'm connected to the Jomox X-Bass 999, so there's a nice kick, clap, some hi-hats. So in fact, if I hit play, and maybe I'll just make a super quick sequence. So we've just got a very super quick sequence there running on the bass, on the X-Bass. Let's go to, what should we go to now? I know what, well, it'd be rude not to. We have an ARP 2600 here in front of us. And I must say, this is a loaner unit. I'm a very lucky guy at home. I have my own ARP 2600, but I didn't really fancy bringing that one over to Berlin. So we asked our really good friends at TurnLab in Belgium if we might be able to borrow one of theirs, and they were really, really very kind to loan that. So thanks a lot, TurnLab as well, in Antwerp, great place. But anyway, we have it here, so we may as well make use of it. So I'm going to go over here. Now, of course, one thing to say is I'm connected to a lot of these devices via MIDI, but we have a lot of CV connectivity on the back there. We have 2 CV outputs, 2 gate outputs, and 2 controlling modulation outputs as well. So I'll just switch to the right channel, and now there's our ARP 2600. So let's get that beat running again, and I'll just hit record and just see what happens. So there we've got an ARP 2600 running, and so why don't we bring something else in? Let's maybe go to the Moro NF1, and we'll just hit record again. So we've got all these sequences starting and running, and we're starting to create a nice, sort of full piece of music using that. But equally, I've got a whole load of control on here as well. So for example, whilst we're connected to the NF1 over here, you can see now I've got access to the filter controls. I can maybe tune the oscillators. Oh, we have an arpeggiator on there as well. And all of this stuff can be completely animated in the sequencer as well of the SL MkIII. So this is basically just a way of showing that this particular device is really very happy to start to speak to all of the things that we have on the wall. And just as a quick point, even though we've got more than 8 pieces here, that doesn't particularly matter, because if I go into my templates page, basically the templates are the things that we use to create our own mappings for the various devices. And at any time I could just decide, okay, instead of being an NF1, why don't you become, I don't know, let's say a Digitone, as up at the top here. So you just dial that in, and then you set up your MIDI channels to the appropriate MIDI channels, and then you've got some nice controls for those devices as well. So that's kind of in essence what we're trying to do with the synth wall. Of course, the SL has a number of really nice features as well. You see we've got the LED above the keys. This is great for when we want to maybe turn on the scales mode, for example. Now we're given our scales visibly represented above the keys, and where the lights are off, those notes aren't in the scale, and we can decide whether they won't play, whether they will play, or whether they'll snap to the nearest note that is in the scale. Also, we have a really powerful arpeggiator in here as well. And the arpeggiator is essentially a programmable arpeggiator, and we can get some really nice stuff using that. We can also set up key zones, and I really like this one as well. So let's go back to this page here, and maybe I want to, I don't know, let's say play some X bass down at the bottom register here, and maybe I want to play some of the, I don't know, let's say peak up on this side. So if I go to my zones mode here, zone 1 is down here. That's perfect, that's already good for me. That's set to part 1. Zone 2 is here, but actually I want zone 2 to be set to the peak, which is part 3. So back to zones, destination part 3, it's now on the peak. If I press again, it goes red, and I can say, okay, from here to here, I want you to play the peak. So now when we go back and turn zones on, you'll see I have the drum sounds, and here. So if I was any good at finger drumming with my left hand, which I'm not, you know, we could use this as a nice performance system. And actually we can split the keyboard into 8 distinct parts as well. So that's a good look at the synth wall. Really, as I say, the SL MkIII, superb controller. It speaks to all worlds in the electronic music production. We have USB connectivity to the computer, really nice DAW integration using the in control, which takes us into nice deep level control over Ableton, Logic, and also Reason, and then HUI control for the other major DAWs. But equally, we've got our MIDI outputs. In fact, we have 2 MIDI outputs on the back, and we have 6 CV gate and modulation controls, and an analog clock output as well. So very heavily configured, great feeling controller keyboard with 8 internal sequences. Each of those 8 sequences has 8 patterns. Those 8 patterns can be joined together to give us 128 steps per sequence, or we can do clever things with the the clock division of each of those sequences to even get more lengths, if you like, sequencer lengths out of it. So that's it. So the Synth Mountain is all controlled by the Novation SL MkIII. Oh, let's hit play and see what happens. I made it a petrol track. I think that's enough.